Okay, today we're going to look at simplifying the difference quotient for this function, g of x is equal to the square root of x plus 1, right? So if we recall, the difference quotient would be g of x plus h minus g of x all over h. So if we replace that, we remember we want here to replace any instance of x plus h with an instance for the x in here. So our first g of x plus h will be x plus h plus 1 minus g of x, which is square root of x plus 1, all over h. Right? And the question before is how do we simplify this step? Right? When we had a fraction, we had to get a common denominator. When we had a quadratic, we simplified it or squared it. And now what we're going to have to do is multiply by what we call the conjugate. Right? And the conjugate for an expression a plus b is a minus b. Or likewise, the conjugate of a minus b is going to be an expression a plus b. So because we have the square root of x plus h plus 1 minus the square root of x plus 1, that conjugate pair is going to be the square root of x plus h plus 1 plus the square root of x plus 1, right? All that's changing is this middle sign. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our original expression, x plus h plus 1 minus the square root of x plus 1 all over h, and multiply it by that conjugate. But because we're simplifying an expression, if I'm ever going to multiply by something, I also have to multiply by its reciprocal. I have to kind of multiply by 1 in a creative way, right? What this allows me to do is when I FOIL, right, I have the same expression with the square root. I have the square root of x plus h plus 1 times itself. Those square roots will cancel. Likewise, when I do the last, I'll also get those things to cancel. And I don't want to forget that parentheses. And what's interesting is when I get the inner and the outer right here, I'll notice I'll have a negative square root of x plus 1 times that quantity and a positive square root of x plus 1 times the same quantity. And it turns out when we have conjugate pairs, the O and the I in FOIL will cancel. So all that's left is the first minus the last, right? And so we can just rewrite our denominator now, our new denominator. And we can just continue to work on simplifying. X plus h plus 1, can't really do anything with. Now I can distribute this negative. X plus h plus 1 plus the square root of x plus 1. Right? If we look at what simplifies, the x's will cancel and the 1's will cancel. I'll just be left with h all over h square root of x plus h plus 1 plus the square root of x plus 1. I can reduce those h's, right? Cancel. And all I'm left with is 1 over square root of x plus h plus 1 plus the square root of x plus 1. And that is going to be my final answer.